You're listening to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
It only takes one step, twist, or crunch to know something doesn't feel right. Essentia Health's orthopedic and sports medicine team gets you back to doing what you love with commitment, resilience, intention. We're here to keep you moving forward. Visit essentiahealth.org to learn more about orthopedics and sports medicine, like nowhere else.
Hello and welcome to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health. I'm your host, Matt Wellens, the Bulldogs hockey beat reporter at the Duluth News-Tribune.
And I'm Zach Schneider, the television voice of UMD Hockey on My Nine Sports.
Also joining us this week on the podcast is the voice of Bulldogs hockey on KDAL, Mr. Bruce Siski. Hi, Bruce.
Just remember, Matt invited me if this doesn't go well.
Well, we let you on the first time. And
You did.
And I went back and listened to the episode the last time you were on, and it was just full of Bruce making excuses for all his predictions.
Oh, you just wait.
And such.
Just wait.
Based on some of those predictions and such, it was good he was coming up with excuses.
I've got this 128 gig phone. I think it's filled with them right now. So
Bruce is back with us again this week. He's here to help us take a look back at the first half of the 2023-24 men's and women's hockey season. We're going to revisit a lot of the questions we had at the start of the season when the three of us got together and we made predictions. Some are on better pace for coming true than others at the moment. But we're going to go back and take a look at a lot of those. But I'm going to start with a rundown of where the Bulldogs are at the halfway point. And we're at the regular season halfway point, I should preface. Actually, the women are like slightly past the halfway point already. The men are like bordering right on the halfway. So we're good. Christmas break is coming at the right time here. So a rundown, the women, they're 11-6-1 overall, 8-6 in the WCHA. They're sitting fifth in the league, just 1 point back of fourth place St. Cloud State. Is it too early to look at the pairwise rankings? Yes, but I took a peek at them anyways earlier today. Anyone, longtime listeners know my rule is you got to get through the holiday break here, the last big major round of non-conference games. So once you get into like second week of January there, that's the best time where I think you can start taking the pairwise seriously. But it's still not an awful time to take a look at it, take a peek at it. The Bulldog women are sixth right now in the pairwise, which would get them into the NCAA tournament if the season ended today. Where are the men in the pairwise? Don't worry about it. just don't look at the pairwise. Don't look at the men's pairwise. For the few of you that are curious, I did look at it for you. They are 33rd right now after a 5-8-4 start. Meanwhile, in the NCHC standings, things are a little brighter. They're tied for sixth with Omaha at 9 points after 8 league games. They're only 1 point out of fifth, just 5 points behind Western Michigan, who sits in third. So let's start by taking a look back at our preseason predictions, see how confident everyone is still in those. The look on Bruce's face says he is not. We'll start with the NCHC. All of us had Denver winning the league, by the way, and Denver's sitting in fourth right now. 9 points back of St. Cloud State, who none of us had. No one had competing for the league title right now. But looking at where we had the Bulldogs, Bruce predicted UMD would finish third. He was super optimistic to start the season. I had the Bulldogs fifth. And Zach is on pace right now. Mr. Pessimistic, as he declared himself at the beginning of the year, had them in sixth. Again, I went back and listened to that first episode. If you haven't listened to it, I know it's like a start of the season preview, but go listen to it. It's kind of fun to see what everyone thought going into this season. I don't think we were all too far off. We were far off on North Dakota's 4 points back of the Huskies in second. How does everyone feel about their predictions at the moment? There's still a lot of hockey left, so things can still change. Bruce, we'll start with you. Mr. UMD's going to finish third.
Aaron Nagler, Cheesehead TV, a lot of ball game left. I've been saying that to myself for about 6 weeks. A lot of ball game left.
So you still think the Bulldogs can climb and finish third?
A lot of
in the
ball game
NCHC?
left.
It's not an answer, Bruce.
You're right.
Bruce
it's not
is just
an
here
answer.
so he won't get fined.
Basically, no. The not great Bob meme comes to mind. I don't feel great about these predictions. There's a lot of time for it. I mean, we played a third of the league season, so
There's a lot of, we're only a third of the way through
Right.
the league schedule, but history of the NCHC in the league has shown the team leading the league at Christmas, like I think 8 times out of 10, has gone on to win. In fact, the one team that's been in the lead twice at Christmas and not gone on to win the league title is UMD. Yeah. They got caught by a ridiculous. They were tied. I think they were tied one year with Miami. Actually, they were tied at the top one year.
I think you're right.
They were tied at the top one of the early years, and then there's that. I believe it was 16-17. They were leading, and Denver went and won like, I don't know, every game.
Yeah,
every
the run
game,
they got on was crazy.
Denver went on a run from January on and didn't lose.
And it's not the only time Denver's gone on a run like that.
Yeah, Denver's a strong second half team. So look out for Denver still sitting in fourth. But Bruce, do you think they can they crack the top 4?
I think they can crack the top 4. And maybe I'm just too high off of what I've seen the last 2 weekends. I have mostly liked what I've seen the last 2 weekends. And I do think that there are reasons to believe they can trend in the right direction. I like what Ben Steeves has been doing. He's been more of a factor 5-on-5, which was something that I said going into the year was going to have to happen. And that was before Dominic James suffered a season-ending injury in the 4th period of the season, whatever it was. So now he really needed to become a factor at 5-on-5. I think he's been doing that lately. The goaltending has been tremendous. I'm glad Scott Sandelin recognized that the last couple of weeks. We've been having him, press conferences and that, and he doesn't like talking about goaltending. I know you're shocked by that, but he is. I think he's recognized those guys, Zach Stejskal and Matt Thiessen, have given him anything he could possibly be asking for out of the two of them. He's gotten here, especially the last 6-8 weeks, whatever it's been here. They've been really good since the Minnesota series. If that can continue, I am optimistic. I like what I've been seeing. They still need to score a little bit more consistently at 5-on-5, but that's been an issue for more than just the last couple of seasons. That goes back even 21-22. That team could not score 5-on-5, and they had pieces in place. You'd think they'd have been able to do that. So they've got to find a way to be more effective offensively 5-on-5. They've got to continue the trend where they've been staying out of the box a little more effectively lately, which is good. It's helped the penalty kill. The penalty kill's been on a heater, and there's some things trending in the right direction, and we haven't even addressed that there's a large human being on the blue line that might be back in the second half of the season who could make a big difference on this team if he's healthy.
Yeah, Bruce alluding to Will Francis. When this comes out on Thursday, hopefully you saw it on Tuesday morning. We got a notebook. Covered a lot of. Bruce must have read my notebook this morning because he covered a lot of the
proud subscriber. Yeah,
covered a lot of the points in it. Ben Steeves, lot better. Scott Sandelin. When I asked him what he thought of Ben's weekend, he had 3 goals. He said it was great, and it wasn't because Ben scored 3 goals, but because Ben was doing everything else that he needed to do. And Ben keyed on that later that night when I talked to him. Said that hey, he's becoming a better defensive player. That's creating more opportunities 5-on-5 and such. And he acknowledges what everyone else is whispering behind the scenes, which is, well, he only scores on the power play. Ben hears you, and he wants to get better at that. He knows he needs to improve, that he can't just be a power play goal scorer.
Hey, real quick, you guys believe in karma, right? So Matt writes about Joey Pierce last week. Joey Pierce leads the way on challenging that potential game-tying goal Saturday at Miami. Ben Steeves was my player guest last week, scored 3 goals on the weekend. So, media's doing their job here.
The Bulldog Insider effect has been a pretty good one through the first half of the season, both for the men and the women. We've had pretty good luck with our guest lineup.
Yeah.
Through
the women
half
have really
of the
come through pretty clutch.
Yeah.
Zach, how are you feeling about your prediction at the start of the year? You and I both kind of in that same spot, that 5th. You had them 6th, I had them 5th. Is that still where you see them ending up at the end here?
Yeah, hopefully not. I mean, I said that at the beginning of this season too, right? I mean, you hope that you're wrong when it's the team that you cover and the fan base that you report to. But, they've played the top 2 teams in the league and they played the bottom 2 teams in the league to this point. And they took 9 of 12 from the bottom 2 leagues, Omaha and Miami, in those 2 series. And they took 0 points from the top 2, St. Cloud and North Dakota. Now, if you want the optimistic viewpoint of that, they struggled at home against North Dakota in the league opener. but then they went on the road and they lost 2 one-goal games to St. Cloud State, which has rolled through the first 8 games of the NCHC season and leads the league at this point. So are they right there? Yes. But can they do it consistently enough over the next 14 games, the next 2/3 of the NCHC season, to finish anywhere but 5th or 6th? I don't know. I haven't seen it through the first half of the season. I hope that it comes together for this group, because I think that it can. We've seen it happen before with UMD teams that are like this one, but the good news is, you play 12 of your next 16 or 12 of your next 14, 16 games in the league against teams that are above you, right? So there's chances to move up. They're not that far out of the 3rd, 4th position. But it's just such an uphill climb, it seems like, and looking back, one thing that I did do, looking back to, the preseason predictions, was go back and find out if they were scoring more and defending better. Remember, we talked about that compared to the NCAA tournament teams, they basically needed to score a goal more per game. They needed to concede about a half goal less per game. They're right on pace. Through the 16 teams that will be in the tournament today, just based on the pairwise, they're a goal behind offensively and they're about a half goal behind defensively. And that is a significant margin to give up. And I just don't, I'm in the same spot I was before the year. I just find it hard for them to find a half goal better defensively with the goaltending that they've already received, the back end that they have. And then where do you find another goal a game out of this group without Dominic James, without any help coming? This is the group they have. And so I think that this is the UMD team we have, and I think if they finish in the top 4 and they get a home playoff series, we'll call that a really good second half of the season, and then see where the chips fall in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think one thing working in UMD's advantage, and maybe it could also come into the disadvantage, because in all reality, they probably them and Omaha should be like tied for 5th right now, not in 6th. The NCHC is really volatile right now. The only team that's shown consistency is St. Cloud State, and that's a little surprising to me, because UMD played North Dakota and St. Cloud State on back-to-back weekends. And I walked away from those 2 series saying, wow, North Dakota is one of the top teams in the country. They're a top 5 team. They're really, really good. And I looked at St. Cloud State and went, they're closer to UMD than UMD was there with St. Cloud State. Like, I didn't walk away terribly impressed with St. Cloud State. Like, there's flaws there, but that team's finding ways to win. Meanwhile, North Dakota got swept at home by Colorado College. So, maybe that's just saying something about my eye and talent evaluation and such. But I think it's more, I think the league is very volatile. And I think you're seeing that with Denver's going to finish higher than 4th. Like, I think your top 3 are probably going to be St. Cloud, North Dakota, Denver in some sort of order like that. Curious if St. Cloud State can hang on and keep the consistency up. And then after that, I think we talked about it at the beginning of the year, after that, it's just between Western, CC, Omaha, and UMD, it's, I think, it's just throwing the names in a hat. And I think those teams, it's going to be a tight battle for that 4th spot for all of them. And it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. What I think is working really well in UMD's favor right now is their goaltending. While it got off to it was okay to start. There's like, if UMD goaltending, I've mentioned this, we kind of grade on a curve, right? Most teams would be like, oh, wow, you're doing pretty good. But at UMD, the standards have been set so high, and they have to be because of what Zach pointed out. They don't score many goals. So the goaltending has to be great. It has to be awesome. It has to be phenomenal. I don't know if Zach Stejskal and Matthew Thiessen are to the great, phenomenal, awesome yet, but they're showing glimpses of it. Both of them have been really good. November, even when they were losing in November, the goaltending was pretty good. December, the goaltending's been really good. That's working in their favor, and that can allow them to steal some games in the second half. I still feel good about my 5th place prediction just based on what I've seen from other teams. And, again, I think as Bruce says, where are you going to find without Dominic James? And Zach said, without Dom James, that they got to find scoring. They're not getting it right now from anyone besides really Ben Steeves. So we got some guys getting some assists. Blake Biondi hasn't been putting up a lot of goals, though. He got one this last weekend at Miami. We're not seeing goals from Quinn Olson on a consistent basis. Anthony Mangini getting a goal here or there has helped, but they need more. They need, as we talked about at the beginning of the year, they need Quinn Olson and Blake Biondi to be scoring, and they're not getting it from them right now. Cole Spicer, I should add, is pitched in a few as well. They need another double-digit goal scorer is really what they need.
And to speak to the volatility, look at how many one-goal games there are in this league. St. Cloud State's won 7 conference games. 4 of them have come by exactly 1 goal. If you're of the analytic bend, you understand that that's probably going to even out over the course of the season. It's usually how that works. And in UMD's case, it goes the other way, that they've lost, of their 5 league losses, 3 of them have been by 1 goal, and a 4th of them in the North Dakota game, they scored for a 2-goal lead with a minute left. So basically a 1-goal game.
Yeah, the problem with UMD in 1-goal games and close games is this is an uncharacteristic UMD team. They've been penalized a lot. They haven't been very disciplined. And so to expect that to regress to the mean in the positive direction for this year's UMD team, I think, you might not see that this year if the team continues to play the way they did in the first half.
And that's why it's good to see, the first 7 games they were giving up 6.5 power play chances a game, which is entirely too many. And now it's down under 4 since then per game. If they can keep it down there, which they've been now here for about, I think 10 games now, that number's been under 4 a game. The penalty kill's at 90% in that stretch because it hasn't been called on 6, 7 times, sometimes 9 times in a game. That's going to tax anybody. Now it's only 3 or 4. You can deal with that. And what you're also seeing, I think, because of that is they're giving up a lot fewer scoring chances on those power plays because they can actually play their game on the kill as opposed to having to sit back all the time because that's all they're doing is killing penalties.
Hopefully this run against Omaha, this 4-game stretch where they got 9 of 12 points, I think we can sit here and say they either deserved, certainly wanted more than 9 of 12 in that 4-game stretch. But you look at their 8 losses this year, 6 of them, they've scored 0 or 1 goal in that game. It's just not a formula to be not only successful over a short term, but certainly over a long term. And so this team really just needs some confidence. If they can go to Milwaukee, play some good non-conference games, they come back with Colorado College, it's a team that can get on a roll. They just need something to go right.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to get into it later about this year compared to last year in the first half, but a small precursor to that is last year they would win a game, lose a game, win a game, lose a game, play good, play bad, play good, play bad. This year they played bad for like 45 days straight, right? Like, and it
felt like it, yeah.
It was like such a dark cloud, and now they've started to pull their way out of it. And no, they didn't get 12 out of 12 against Omaha and Miami, but they started that drumbeat in the right direction. So can that continue after the break?
And I don't want to be excuse guy. I don't, but I'm going to do it here anyway. It's something I've thought a lot about during this road trip. These are still, for the most part, 19, 20, 21-year-old players. These are kids. And this is the 3rd youngest team in the NCHC, and the 2 that are younger they haven't seen yet, Denver and CC. They won't see Denver at all till February. But there's been a lot heaped on these guys in a short amount of time. And I don't necessarily just mean trying to learn how to play the game the right way, the opponents they're playing against. I'm talking about Will Francis announcing in August that cancer came back. I'm talking about Dominic James. They know he's their best center. They know he's their number 1 faceoff guy, suffering a season-ending injury in the 5th period of the season. We're talking about what happened to Adam Johnson, which affected a lot of players on this team in different ways because some guys knew him really well, some guys did not. But when you see the guy next to you in the locker room is suffering, you're suffering too. That's just how that works. We put a lot on these guys in a short amount of time to start the season. And oh, by the way, you also have to go play hockey against some elite competition. They're starting to come out of a lot of different things right now. That's why I said I do have some optimism because I think the further you get away from all that bad stuff that happened, the more time you have to actually process some of that stuff. I think the more you're able to focus on what you're supposed to be doing on Friday and Saturday. And I think it's helped lately. They've been playing more consistently, a little bit better. It's a step in the right direction. We'll see if they can carry it over to the second half.
Going back because my laptop finally woke up. Ben Steeves has 11 goals right now. I think that's as I wrote, that's on pace to exceed last year's goal total. Actually, I think that's great for him.
And if you give me an over/under on that, I would have taken the under.
Yeah, seven of those are on the power play. You could say an eighth was a power play goal because it was an extra attacker on a delayed penalty. But two of his last 4 goals have come at even strength. So he's playing well. Cole Spicer's got 5 goals. Luke Lohheit, 5 goals. Anthony Mangini, I think that's the bonus. 4 goals from him right now. Guys you'd like to see more. I think Quinn Olson, just 3 goals. You wish you had more out of him. Even though he has the 11 assists, you'd like more goals. Blake Biondi, just the 3 goals. I think they'd like to see more there. Connor McMenamin, I think they were hoping more than 3 goals as well for him. So are you guys, the next question I had written down was what's the best case scenario, worst case scenario for the Bulldogs going forward? But I kind of think we covered that a little bit. I guess I'm just curious, are either of you surprised at where the Bulldogs are at right now? Has anything that's gone on in this first half surprised you guys? I feel like some of the fans that I've talked to, like they weren't, again, success has spoiled everyone here. And they thought, oh, one down year, they're going to be right back at the top again. And I'll admit, I'm not surprised on what I saw. 8 games without a win. Yeah, that was a little much. I didn't expect that to go as long as it did, though. When you look at the teams they played, those were the top teams in the country right now. St. Cloud State obviously is a team that can find ways to win this year, we're seeing right now. And once again, the time I think St. Cloud State's going to be down there, they're up competing for a league title. So are either of you surprised at what has gone on in the first half so far, Zach?
No, I think the 8-game winless streak is probably maybe the biggest surprise. It's just because it's not something that has happened a lot under Scott Sendlin's tenure here at UMD. So that was something that we haven't experienced for 10-plus seasons in Duluth. So that was certainly, a long stretch of games and a long stretch of weeks for both the team and the fan base. But other than that, I mean, I think this is kind of largely what we expected, a team that will struggle to score, a team that has, for the most part, a back end that is either inexperienced or has kind of a defined ceiling, and then 2 goaltenders who, even though as well as they've played at times, just have a lot to shoulder. So I think, honestly, you could say it's a surprise that they're only a couple points out of 4th. I mean, the way that this season has gone and that 8-game winless streak and how bleak everything looked for those 43 days or whatever it was when they got swept by North Dakota, swept by St. Cloud, to be sitting here at the break and say it's a realistic possibility that you could play your way into 4th, even 3rd at this point. I think that might be more surprising than anything, because this is certainly, we don't want to sit here at the holiday break and say this is a lost season. This is something that can turn around in a hurry just as quickly as it turned the other way.
I would compare it to the Packers in a sense that, I think.
Thought we weren't going to talk about the Packers today, Bruce.
You said that. I did not. No, I think even with what they did against the Giants notwithstanding, which wasn't good, but I think they have put themselves in a position where they are going to play relevant games in December and hopefully in January. And when you have a group that's as young as that is, you can't put a price tag on the value of being, even if they're just regular season games, down the stretch, you're playing relevant games with, other teams aren't that are in your position. That's a big time positive when you look ahead. This is still a young group. 3rd youngest team in the NCHC. I think they're the 14th youngest team in the country. There's a lot of hockey for a lot of these guys to play together at UMD going forward. If they can play relevant games, which they didn't really get a chance to do last year down the stretch because they played themselves out of the top 4 before they went down to St. Cloud to finish up the regular season. If they can be playing relevant games, playing for, maybe for home ice in late January, February, early March, I think that's a good thing for this group, because that a lot of them are going to come back next year. That's experience that they need to have. They haven't had it here yet. Right? So they're in a position now where they can do that. I think that's a good thing. I don't, inconsistency surprised me. I thought they'd be a little bit sharper, even if they weren't winning games. But some of the inconsistencies that we've seen in the first half were mildly surprising for me.
I want to switch over to the women in the WCHA. All of us had them finishing 4th in the league. All of us predicted St. Cloud would challenge them for that 4th spot, which they did. The Huskies took 4 out of 6 points to end the first half. So you have that interesting 4-5 battle going on in the WCHA right now. For me, I think the women things are going. I almost feel like they might be going better than, even though they're battling. They don't have fourth locked in. I feel like things might be going a little better there. They're not scoring goals at a high pace, but they just don't let in goals either. 23 straight penalty kills to close the first half, and they arguably have two of the top goaltenders in the country in Haley McLeod, who finally lost a game as the goalie of record last Saturday against St. Cloud State, and then Ev Gascon, who Maura was thrilled that they finally got her a win on Friday in St. Cloud. They've been playing her against some of the top teams in the country, but I think she's been as good as advertised. She hasn't gotten the wins because she hasn't gotten the goal support. I kind of feel like the women, everything is played out how we thought it would. Would you guys agree, Zach?
Yeah, almost exactly, right? I mean, they're 1-5 against the big three: Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio State. They're 6-0 against Mankato, St. Thomas, and Bemidji. St. Cloud, same thing, except they're 1-4-1 against the big three, and that's the 1 point that separates St. Cloud and UMD at this point. So you take care of your business against the lower half of the league. You try to steal a point where you can against some of the upper echelon teams, and then you try to beat St. Cloud State when they come here in the second half of the season, and that's going to be the difference between fourth and fifth. But this is pretty much exactly what we expected out of the women's side.
Bruce?
I would agree. I think it was mildly disappointing that they couldn't get a point out of the Ohio State and Minnesota series being at home for both of those. I know Ohio State's really good, and there's no question that they're a top contender, and we all know how well that roster's been built here for this year. I think we can understand that, but the Minnesota series, I think it felt like that was a series they could get a couple of points out of, and I wasn't here for it. You weren't here for it. But by the accounts, it sounds like they may have missed an opportunity there. Now they got to go to Ohio State in the second half. They got to go to Minnesota in the second half. To me, they got to find a way to steal some points. It's not going to be easy. They've got to find a way. But yeah, I think this has gone about what we expected. It's good that they've taken care of the business they need to take care of with the bottom half of the league. But if they want to challenge and be a serious contender, and I think they do, and I think they're capable of that with the way they play defense, the way that they goaltend, they've got to take points on the road here in some tough environments in the second half.
Yeah, I think the series that actually is the most key coming up here is their first series when they get back, when they go to Quinnipiac.
Yeah.
If they went and took, we'll call it 3 out of 4 points, pairwise points, I guess you could say, by beating and tying Colgate, who's I think them and Clarkson right now are head and shoulders the two best teams out east. They swept Long Island. What's helping the WCHA, what's helping UMD, and even St. Cloud, this is going to be interesting when we get towards the end of the year here. And I think this is where UMD needs wins. The other big series is going to be against St. Cloud. The next time they see St. Cloud in Duluth, they got to go out there and win that series because they need to have that pairwise comparison over the Huskies, because the WCHA is flirting with 5 teams possibly in the NCAA tournament right now. 5 out of 11 teams.
Yeah, the committee's not going to like that very much.
No, they are not.
Yeah, but if St. Cloud and UMD don't stub their toe, and even a tie is considered stubbing your toe against the bottom 3 teams in this league, even if you don't do anything worthwhile against the top 3 teams, maybe you beat up on each other a little bit, I don't know if they're going to be able to keep all 5 out. I think they're going to have to accept the reality that both UMD and St. Cloud are mathematically in the tournament at that point. I could be wrong about this, but I don't think that losses to Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Ohio State, even if you lose all 6 of those games, maybe you lose one more in the WCHA playoffs, I don't think that those are going to be enough to push you out as long as you take care of your business. Now, if you go on the road trip and you get swept by Quinnipiac, maybe that changes things. But I think that what's troubled UMD in the last 2 or 3 seasons and what's made this, somewhat dicey at times is that they've stubbed their toe against those bottom 3 teams.
Yeah, the WCHA has just been so good out of league play this year, and I think that has been just a tremendous factor in this. And again, I think if UMD goes and sweeps Quinnipiac, it's going to be tough. They're going to be sitting real
I
good
agree.
because that's you go and get it, even just a win, even if you split that series. You got wins over Quinnipiac and Colgate. Quinnipiac, you could argue, is the third best team maybe right now out east there. Though that group, once you get past Clarkson and Colgate, they're starting to beat up on each other a bit. But I mean, you're competing with the ECAC for at-large bids. Hockey East looks like it's going to be a one-bid league. Obviously, NUHA and College Hockey America are going to be one-bid leagues. So when you're looking at that line and the pairwise on the women's side, you're looking at, you got to get to 8. Yep. So St. Cloud and UMD, they're trying to get to 8. I think St. Cloud is around 7 or 8 right now. UMD's at 6. So yeah, I mean, eventually the committee's not going to have a choice. Yeah. So as long as the league has another strong, there's some big series coming up over the holiday break here. Minnesota State, while they have really struggled in WCHA play, has been good out of conference. They have Lindenwood. Wisconsin's taking on Merrimack. Minnesota's taking on UConn. Bemidji's got Robert Morris coming up here. Bemidji State could get Colgate, actually. That would be really interesting if the Beavers could somehow, I don't think it's going to happen, but if they could steal a win from Colgate there. There's some big non-conference games coming up here over the holidays for the WCHA. If they can continue to take business, yeah, we could be seeing five bids from that league. But I think the women are in a great spot. So we'll close this out before we go to the break. Bruce, do the UMD women make the NCAA tournament?
Yes.
Another year? Yes.
They're in.
Zach?
Yeah. Again, considering that they do what they're supposed to do in the second half, yeah, but yeah, I think they will, and I think they'll be in.
We are here for the tears of the East when 5 WCHA teams make the NCAA tournament. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more with Bruce and Zach. You're listening to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
Greetings from Northlandia, a place to bring your curiosity, because here you will find curiosities. Whether it's a look inside the Northern Rail Train Car Inn or an introduction to Duluth's musical roboticist, Robot Rickshaw, we celebrate the region's distinctive people, places, and history. Each week, I'm joined by my fellow reporters who share the unique and fascinating stories that they discover while exploring the Northland. You can find new episodes of the Northlandia podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Join us along this journey and discover the extraordinary stories that you just might miss if you're not in the right place at the right time, ready to step off the beaten path with no rush to return, here in Northlandia.
Hi, I'm Maria Lockwood, a reporter with the Superior Telegram. Explore Superior and Douglas County history with me on Archive Dive, a monthly podcast available at superiortelegram.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. They're proud to be the team physicians for the UMD Bulldogs and provide sports medicine care to more than 25,000 student athletes in the community to ensure they can compete at the highest level while protecting their long-term health and athletic futures. Thanks to Essentia Health for their support of the Bulldog Insider Podcast. I'm Matt Wellens, along with Zach Schneider and Bruce Siski. Some quick hit questions to kind of run through to close out again as we go through the first half here. Almost like our first half awards, I guess. Somewhat, if you want to call them those. What transfer has made the biggest impact so far this season? We're going to start with the women. Zach, who do you got in mind?
Reese Hunt has been really, really good. We saw her as an opponent at Bemidji State for 4 years, and we knew she could skate. We knew she was smart, but the offensive upside that they talked about when she came in has really shown in the first half of the season. She's already got 8 goals, which is a career high. She's got 8 assists to go along with it. Her career high at Bemidji was 20 points. So if she keeps on pace, she's going to blow that out of the water as well. And she's really been maybe UMD's best player through the first half of the season.
Yeah, her and Hunt and Manny McMahon, both 8 goals, 8 assists to lead the team in scoring. I think Reese Hunt has been as advertised. Bruce,
I can't argue objections? That. No, absolutely not. She's been tremendous, and it was fun to talk to her last week and get to know her a little bit. But yeah, I think you see the value of the 4 years she played in this league, that she's able to come in here it may be a little different role than what she ever played in Bemidji and hit the ground running because she had that necessary experience. And it's valuable when you know how to play in this league, and she did. So and good for her. She's been great in everything she's done so far.
I think this will be an easy answer on the men's side as well. Which transfer has made the biggest impact? Bruce, I'll let you go.
It's got to be Connor McMenamin. I don't think we've seen the best of him so far. I think he's still kind of getting settled in a little bit, but I thought he had a good weekend against Omaha. I thought he was all right last weekend too against Miami. So hopefully a good sign. And there's a few guys I think on this team that the break will help, and we'll see how they come out in the second half. But I think Connor McMenamin's the main guy here.
Yeah, hopefully the first half in the NCHC, he gets a little bit more settled in now after the break. But, I mean, it tells you everything you need to know about Connor, that he was given the A after Dominic James went down. And, his production on the ice notwithstanding, which I think we all want it to be better, probably him most of all. But the fact that he was voted in to take over that captaincy role after Dom went down speaks volumes about a group that he had been around just for a few months at that point.
Yeah, we mentioned. I think everyone would like to see more than he's got 3 goals and 5 assists through 17 games. But that leadership, I think, was badly needed once they lost Dom, and they had someone there that could step in. Part of me wonders if even if Dom stays healthy, if maybe not as soon, but if we would have come back from the second half and would have seen a letter on his chest. I think his leadership in the locker room has been huge. It's helped everyone in there. We've heard Luke Loheit even mention, the value of having an older guy, an experienced guy come in like that and be part of the leadership group.
It says a lot that a guy can walk in the door as a transfer, first year in the program, and I mean, it was almost immediate when Dom went down. It was like the following week they said, all right, we're putting a letter on this guy. It says a lot about his character and his leadership ability. And yes, they have desperately needed that with such a young team to have a guy like that who's played in the NCAA tournament, been a captain before. That's big time.
Which freshman has made the biggest impact so far this season, starting with the women? Zach, who you got?
Ev Gascon. She's pretty good.
Understatement of the podcast.
Yeah,
right there.
you look at her numbers, and she's played the best teams, and I think Haley McLeod has played better than I expected through the first half of the season, to be honest with you. But Ev has played more of the top tier opponents for UMD. Her record doesn't describe it, but wins in this case are not a goaltender stat, and she's been fantastic. And I just look forward to not only the rest of this season, but the rest of her career, because she is certainly another in a long stretch of really good goaltenders on the women's side.
Ida Carlson, I'll throw in there too. Let's look at what they lost on that back end after last year with Maggie Flaherty and Ashton Bell, and you're talking about 2 defenders that were playing, north of 25 minutes a game last year. And yes, Nina Jope-Smith has been good, and Hannah Baskin has been good, and Tova Henderson has taken a step. But I think Ida Carlson has been a real find for them in that back end. She can skate, she can move the puck, she's really good with her stick. Defensively, she's been a big cog in what they've done here in the first half of the year. And yes, Ev's been great, but I got to throw Ida Carlson in there as well.
Yeah, I wanted to give. I think it's obvious Ev has been solid. They have thrown her into the fire against some of the top teams. She made both starts against the Buckeyes. She made both starts against the Gophers. They threw her in there against Colgate. And then Haley got in there against Colgate.
Haley played against Colgate.
Haley played against Colgate.
They split Wisconsin. They split
Wisconsin
this last weekend as well.
Right. That's where we go. Yeah. Ev's been pretty good, but I think where they needed someone to step up the most was on defense, and Carlson has been great. And if you're Emma Soderberg, you got to be thinking, thank you that the national team has a future defenseman like that coming up, because Sweden's defense has not been great in the last few international tournaments. They're in desperate need of some defensemen, and Carlson looks like the real deal there. Which freshman has made the biggest impact for the men this season? Bruce?
Anthony Mangini. I mean, he's been, from basically day one, this guy's killing penalties and doing it well. Him and Jack Smith have been a great pair on the kill, but the minutes he's given them at 5-on-5, I think about, so Friday night, He takes a penalty, whatever. You're going to do that once in a while. But he gets out of the box, and the puck got dumped down the ice. He jumps out of the box, wins the race to the puck, and draws a penalty in the offensive zone to put his team on the power play. Now, they didn't score on the power play, but again, it's about what his speed does, what his tenacity does. The guy has no fear in his game at all. He does not care. He will do whatever he thinks it needs to be done for the team at that time. And I think he's been a heck of a find for UMD, and I'm really excited to watch what he's able to do the next 3.5 years.
Yeah, if it's not Mangini, it's Aaron Pionk, right? The team's probably unquestionably number one defenseman. I think you can maybe make an argument for a couple other guys, but over the course of the entire first half, it's been Aaron who has stepped in, largely to the role that was left by a guy like Wyatt Kaiser. Now, is he at Kaiser's level yet? No. But he's playing in that role, right, where he's on the power play. He's playing a lot of minutes every game, and it's a position that he's played for, 4 years?
No, 2.
2?
He started in November of 2021.
So, I mean, his progression has been ridiculous, and you see shades of what his brother did here at UMD at times, and he's made mistakes, yes, but he's going to be a really good player in his career here for the Bulldogs.
And what's impressing me is, right now he's in a spot where, because they have struggled defensively, I think the coaches have asked him to be a little more defensive minded. This guy was a forward for however many years he's playing hockey until 2021. And you're asking him to now be basically a defensive defenseman. He does have that offensive ability. We will see that, I think, over time. But right now, what they need out of him are defensive minutes. And I think he's adjusting fairly well to that, which says a lot about him because, again, he's been a defenseman for 2 years. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, I want to highlight Matthew Perkins just because
Fair.
The injury to Dom has forced him to grow up quick. And I know Bruce tried to get Scott to say nice things about Matthew Perkins last week at the press conference. And Scott's right. Perkins has had freshman moments. He is a freshman playing center in NCAA Division I hockey, and that is not easy. But I think he's been a solid guy. I think he's done well. He's learning. He's figuring it out. We just talked to him on the podcast, recently, and he hasn't played a ton of center either. He's still learning some of this. And center in juniors and such is way different than when you become a center in these upper levels of college hockey, especially in a Scott Sandlin system. A lot is asked of the centers, and I think he stepped in. What could have been a disaster losing Dom has not been. They're in a really good spot here. Cole Spicer stepped into that top role, and they've gone with Perkins as a second line center, which is insane. You would have thought he would have been, if they were using at the beginning of the year. If you told me Matt Perkins has to be a center, I'm thinking, oh, he's your fourth line center. They moved Jack Smith back out to wing, something like that, and he's been solid. I think he's only going to get better and improve in that position.
2 things on Matty Perkins. One, since league, and I haven't run the numbers after Saturday's game, but I'm going to guess they didn't change a whole lot from what I remember looking at the stat sheet. But since league play started, he's been their best faceoff guy, and it isn't all that close. This is a guy who's 19 years old, about 160 pounds soaking wet, who also, point number 2, probably isn't even on this team if Isaac Howard doesn't transfer to Michigan State after last season. If Isaac Howard is still in this program, I think Matty Perkins is still playing in the USHL this year. So it really says a lot about his acumen, his want to, that he has walked in here and taken on a role he was not expecting to take on when he signed that NLI in the spring. Which
player has been the biggest surprise of the first half? We'll start with the women. Bruce?
I've had a difficult time with this one, but I'm gonna go back to Tova Henderson. I think I expected her to take a step, but I think the way she has come through the first half of the year been really impressive. And she does have that offensive ability. I'd like to see a little more of that because I think as you get deeper into a season, it doesn't matter. Men's, women's hockey, it doesn't matter. It is really difficult to score 5-on-5. If you can get contributions from the back end, spread teams out in the defensive zone, it really helps. And I think Tova Henderson's one of those players that could be a big-time contributor for this team offensively as we go through.
Yeah, it's been fun to see her contribute on the back end. I go back to Haley McLeod for me.
That's my pick. I'm floored by how great she's been.
She's been fantastic. And like I say, maybe she hasn't played, a lot of the top teams on their schedule, but she's played a couple of them and she's played really well. And you know what? She's taken care of business in the games that she's played, which is all you can ask of a player. And so she's been really solid. I did not, quite honestly, expect to see as much of a 1A, 1B goaltender rotation as we've seen through the first half. I expected Gascon to come in and really, be the primary goaltender, but McLeod has earned every minute of her playing time, and it's been fun to see.
Who is your biggest surprise on the men's side? Zach, I'll start with you.
This is kind of a funny one to say, but it's Ben Steeves for me. To think that he has 11 goals at the break after he scored 21 a year ago. I think Bruce said it earlier. I wouldn't have put money on that to start the year. And the fact that he's done a lot of his damage on the power play was to be expected. But he's done better, as Bruce mentioned earlier as well. 5-on-5 in the last maybe 2 or 3 weekends, and I expected to see more of a regression to the mean, right, for Steeves, and we haven't seen that. He's still the same old guy. He's a goal scorer. Yes, there's parts of his game that you want to see maybe some more development as time goes on, but the fact that he's putting the puck in the back of the net not only is surprising, but it's much needed. Can you imagine if he did regress to the mean and he had 4 or 5 goals at this point? We talked earlier about, was this the first half that UMD wanted? No, but they are where they are largely because of the goal scoring of Ben Steeves.
Bruce, who's your biggest surprise?
And the stupidity of that shootout goal Friday, which we haven't talked about yet, it's ridiculous. To think about somebody being strong enough to do that one-handed, and he made it look easy.
He scored 2 ridiculous shootout goals this year.
That's true.
The one, I forget the opponent, but it was early in the year in one of the exhibition shootouts where he faked it and then deked. That was ridiculous in its own right, and then he topped it with the one-hander.
He has 3 shootout goals, all scored in different ways, which I'm sure the goaltenders are going to love preparing for if we get more of those. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the freshman. I'm going to say Matthew Perkins is the biggest surprise. He's been a revelation in a lot of different ways, and I am really looking forward to seeing as he unlocks more and more of what he can do offensively, what that's going to mean for this team going forward, and whether it's in the middle going forward or if there's some centers coming in next year, maybe he gets pushed back out to wing. Who knows? We're not here to plan next year's lineup right now, but either way, watching what he's able to do, like with Anthony, the next 3.5 years, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm going to go Anthony Mangini just because his speed is what has jumped out to me. His speed is something this team has been missing. They haven't had a speed demon like that, a guy that can fly down and beat out the opposition to icing, a guy that can take that puck and race it into the zone, buy a little time for the rest of the guys to catch up. His speed has been phenomenal, and I think it's something to keep an eye on as the program moves forward. His decision making, obviously, as a freshman, needs to improve. He's had a couple hothead moments out there as well. As he learns to play within that and gets better and grows and matures, he's going to be a really good player for them, if not the second half here. I think he's really going to catch some eyes. I think that's the guy there that, as much as I think you're right with Perkins, I'm surprised that he's been able to step in and do what he's been able to do as a center. But, Mangini having the 4 goals, being an impact early, and that speed, I think, is really important as you look toward the future.
And yes, he's had some hothead moments, but reality is, for a coach, it's easier to coach that out of somebody and bring that down to where he's not on the edge so much than it is to get the tenacity out of somebody who just doesn't have it. So you'd rather have it this way than the opposite.
All right, let's close out one last question here before we run out of time, because I still want to get to submitted questions. We got a few of them here. Who's been the first half MVP? Bruce, who you got for the women? Start with them.
I'm going to say Haley McLeod. It's difficult because you almost want to give it to both of them, but if you got to pick one, I think that, her numbers have jumped off the page, certainly, and she's given them, I think asking an 18-year-old freshman to come into this league and play every night, that'd be that I don't care how good you are, how mature you are, That's not going to be easy. I think what she's given them in that regard, or this is an actual competition. It's not just, give Ev a night off against, Long Island or whatever. Haley has earned starts against the top competition by playing as well as she has. And I think that, that has been tremendous, I think, for everybody involved there.
For me, it's Reese Hunt. Not just the goal scoring that she has brought to the team, but just the energy and the pace of play that she's brought. They really needed that after the last couple of years losing the players that they did to graduation. And she's complemented the play of Mann and McMahon also with a lot of speed and skating ability. Clara Van Wieren so strong against the wall. Those three offensively have been really good for UMD, and if they can maybe even tack on a little bit more in the second half, give a little bit more run support to those goaltenders that Bruce was talking about in some of those big games, then they'll be just fine.
I'm disappointed Bruce actually took a stand and picked one of the goaltenders, because I wasn't going to pick a goaltender. Like I'm making Haley McLeod and Ev Gascon share it, but I think Bruce makes a good point. Is Ev as good as she is if she doesn't have Haley McLeod there pushing her, making sure that she's earned every start? Ev has had to, when Ev goes out there and starts now, it's not just, she's been crowned, she's the next coming or anything like that of top goaltenders in hockey. Like, she's had to earn every start that she's gotten. Same with Haley going out there and earning every start that she's gotten. Those two, I think, have really pushed each other hard. And it's going to be interesting to see that goalie battle. I think it's great for Maura Kroll. Like, we've asked her, like, how do you decide? And not because we're trying to, like, get any insight, because I'm just curious. Like, do you flip a coin at this point or what? When because I don't think she can go wrong when she throws a goaltender out there, whether she wants to start the same person back to back or she wants to rotate. That's probably the biggest challenge, is Maura Kroll deciding how she's going to manage these two phenomenal goaltenders going forward.
And I'm not just saying this because I know she listens occasionally, at least to the podcast, but give Maura some props here, because, coaches are the really good coaches can adjust to the situation that they have. She handed the net to Maddie Rooney before her sophomore year, which would have been 2016-17. UMD has not had a goaltending tandem really since then. It's been a 1A, and that's been the player that they've ridden, whether it be Maddie Rooney or Emma Soderberg. Now you have two legitimate goaltenders that are competing, that they're pushing each other. She recognizes that, and instead of just saying it's Ev's net, it's Haley's net, we've seen a whole lot of back and forth here in the first half. Haley has a couple of tremendous starts against Colgate. It doesn't mean that we forget about Ev. She starts the next game against Wisconsin. I think that's a sign of a coach that understands the players that she has and how to get the most out of them, and that, I think, deserves a lot of credit.
Who's our MVP for the men? Bruce, who you got?
Oh, Ben Steeves. It has to be. Again, I don't want to overplay this, but if you'd have told me a freshman scores 21 goals is going to regress, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'll believe that, because that's more often than not what happens. Alex Iafallo had it happen. Had a great freshman year, and production-wise, at least, wasn't great again until his senior year. That's kind of what happens sometimes in this league. It can eat you a little bit as a young player. And he's come in, 11 goals in the first half, and arguably in a situation where there would be more defensive attention heaped on him, because there are fewer guys that are factors offensively, big-time factors at least, than what they had maybe last year even. I think it's a really impressive performance from him in the first half.
Yeah, and that's his big value to any team that he's on, right? He's a goal scorer, and if he's not doing that, then things go the other way in a hurry. But so far this year, he's done that, and that's been fantastic for the team. I think that if it's not Ben Steeves, I won't take a stance on this one on the men's side, but I'll give it to the two goaltenders in Stayskal and Thiessen. They've certainly deserved better. Some of their numbers don't maybe look as gaudy, but I think that's less indicative of the way they've played through the first half of this season, and more about what the team's done in front of them. They've taken bad penalties. They've been on the penalty kill. They haven't had good defensive coverage at times, and the goaltenders have given them a chance to win some of those games that they and a few of them had no business being as close as they were, to be quite honest. And so if that continues and maybe some of these guys get out of their rut, Connor McMenamin gets a little bit more comfortable. Maybe Blake Biondi, after missing the last half of last season, needed the first half to really get his feet back under him. We expect more in the second half. If they can score a few more goals, I think the goaltenders, are going to give them chances to win more games in the second half.
Yeah, I'll go with Bruce's pick in Ben Steeves. They'd be in a tough spot right now if they didn't have the goals that they're getting from them, even if they're on the power play. When he's scoring, they're more or less winning. As I'm going through and looking at when he got his goals, he was scoring early. He had the 5 goals in the first 5 games there, 4 goals now over the last 4 games. He did have a goal in one of the losses to Cornell. He had a goal and assist in the tie against Minnesota. Like, he's the guy that gets that offense going. They need him to score goals. They need him to continue up the pace. And as Ben, told me Saturday night in Miami after was a pretty good weekend, 3 goals for him. He's not satisfied. He knows he can do more. He wants to do more. And I think that's good to hear from him. They need him to continue scoring, and hopefully that can trickle down to the rest of the lineup and open things up for the rest of the team. Close some things out here with some submitted questions. And we already kind of alluded to one of these from our friend Nate Wells, aka Gopher State on social media. Is the glass half empty or glass half full for both teams after last weekend? Let's start with the women. Is the glass half empty or the glass half full, even despite the result against St. Cloud? Zach?
I want to say it's half full, but I'm neutral on this one because, again, the ceiling seems restricted for this year's team, right? I mean, we've seen them struggle against the top tier opponents, and we know that that's the expectation. So it depends on how you're placing the expectation on this team. If you're expecting them to compete for a national championship this year, then it's half empty. If you're expecting them to compete to finish 4th, the top half of the WCHA, get into the NCAA tournament, then I think it's half full. So it depends on how you're looking at it. But I think based on what we thought this season would be, it's half full for the UMD women.
Bruce, how about you for the women?
I would say half full because, again, my Packers comparison, they're going to play relevant games down the stretch. They are very likely to make the NCAA tournament, which is amazing experience for everybody involved that needs it. Haley McLeod's been in it, but she's never played in it. That's a whole different thing. So I think from that standpoint, again, if you're trying to build, and I agree, the ceiling is restricted, I think, for this team. But with that in mind, you're trying to build going forward, relevant experience, important experience, that those things matter, and they're going to get it.
Coaches and players will never admit it, but this is an important season for both the men and the women. But on the women's side, this is an important season to set up what could be a return to the elite status in the next 2 to 3 seasons with what they have and what they have coming in. This is going to be an important year, but coaches and players will never admit that.
They want to win right now.
But I think that, from the outside looking in, we can be honest about what's expected.
Yeah, I'm glass more than half full for the women. They got a chip in a chair. Heck, they got more than that right now for the NCAA tournament. The NCAA tournament's one and done. If they're in with the goaltending that they have a shot. I know we talked about they don't score a lot of goals, but guess what? No one scores a lot of goals in the NCAA tournament unless you're playing someone from Newha or College Hockey America or hockey. Sometimes we see Hockey East teams get lit up, minus Northeastern. And Northeastern doesn't appear to be Northeastern anymore right now. So if you get in the NCAA tournament, when you get into that quarterfinals, when you get into the Frozen Four, when it's ECAC versus WCHA, and then eventually WCHA versus WCHA, more often than not, it comes down to the goaltending. And UMD has some phenomenal goaltending right now. And I don't think anyone should sleep on St. Cloud either. No. Saniola and JoJo Chobek are really good as well. I think what Minnesota has working for it is Vetter has been very good for them as well. Again, I think the UMD women sitting 6th in the pairwise at Christmas here. I know it's early pairwise, and it could shift violently here yet, depending on what happens at Quinnipiac. But to not be on the bubble of the NCAA tournament, but right now, like firmly inside that bubble, they're in a great spot. to not just get into the tournament, but maybe make a run. For the men, how are we feeling? Glass half empty or half full? Bruce?
I mean, I'd say half empty because I go back to the inconsistency has surprised me. But even then, I don't think it's necessarily as much half empty as it is half. Like, I feel there's reasons to be positive, there's reasons to not be, right? And I would lean more towards the half empty just because I think when you've got to climb past the number of teams that they have to get past to get home ice in the second, even with 2/3 of a conference season to play, it's an ask. It's a hill to climb. But again, I go back to if they're playing relevant games in February into March, even if it doesn't end the way they want it to, I think it does help them going forward.
One of the only reasons I want to say half full to this question is that the things that bothered me most about the first half of the men's season are fixable things.
Yeah.
And they're fixable immediately as long as you approach the game the right way. We're not asking Luke Lohheit to score 30 goals. We're not asking Aaron Pionk to be Wyatt Kaiser. We're asking them to put pucks deep in the zone. We're asking them to not take stupid retaliatory penalties, as emotional as games can be, and we've seen that in the first half. We're asking them to do things that they should be able to do, and if they can do those simple things, this team will see more success.
Yeah.
Now, can they do that? Will they do that? I hope that the holiday break gives this team a chance to kind of reset. But it's not that they're lacking the talent to get to where we think they could get to. It's that they've done things to self-sabotage in a sense in the first half. And if they quit doing that, maybe they win some of those 1-goal games and this season turns around in a hurry. And so for that reason, I'll say half full because I feel like this team is capable of doing the things it needs to do to be successful.
I'll go half full again because of the goaltending. I think if you had asked me this after, earlier when Stejskal and Thiessen were, they weren't playing bad, but you were seeing Scott switching goaltenders more or less because no one was going out there and winning the job. It'd probably be half empty, but I half full just because I go back to, the run Ryan Fanti let him on a couple of years ago. If a goaltender can get hot and play well and play strong, and as Zach said, things are correctable. We're not, if the goaltenders can get on a run and a couple guys start putting the puck in more, Blake Biondi hits that open net the other night at Miami, gets it inside the post instead of outside the post. Just little things like that. Mangini can start scoring a little more consistently and such. Quinn Olsen, maybe he's not going to score goals this year, but if he's feeding them to Biondi and Spicer and such, that would be just as good. So if they can get another goal here or there, I think they have a shot. I think this team is in a better position to climb than I originally thought. I thought they'd be kind of locked into the bottom half of the league, but there appears to be a window that they could potentially get home ice this
talked
season.
me into it. Well, that was difficult.
Yeah. Angel Carl asks, how would you compare the first half of this year to the first half of last year? And Zach, you kind of touched on it. Last year was just like mood swings left and right. They'd play a great game one night and then stink the next night. The inconsistency was just so up and down. Not so much this year. That's how I compare the first half.
Yeah, it's leveled off a little bit.
And that's a good thing, right? On the men's side, we know who this team should be to be successful. We know exactly what they look like when they're not successful. And if you can buy in, which I think is something that from the outside looking in, and this is a tough thing to measure, but Scott Sandlin's teams, when they've been successful, no matter how much talent they've had individually, they've bought into their role. They've bought into his systems. They haven't gone rogue, whether that's on routes on faceoffs, power plays, forechecks, penalties. This team has gone rogue a lot in the first half, and it hasn't always been the same guy, and it hasn't always been the same situation. But if this team can buy in more, then the consistency factor is less of a concern than it was at this point last year.
And let's look at these last 4 games. So they have the good game against Omaha. They come out Saturday. They get off to a great start. They don't score. They start taking penalties. Shockingly, that causes problems. But that second period, that was, I think Scott Sandelin said, not good. I think that was the way he phrased it after the game, and that might have been an understatement. I think shot attempts were like 27-5, but how many 10-bell saves did Zach Stejskal have to make in that second period? The answer is very few, because a lot of it was kept at the outside. They still were, yes, they were giving up a lot of possession. They were losing faceoffs left and right all over the rink, but at the same time, they kept a lot of what Omaha's trying to do to the outside, and they let their goaltender see it. So that, to me, was even a step in the right direction from last year when they have a period like that and give up 3 goals. This time around, they weren't doing that, so good. I look back to the Miami game. They got behind 2-0 65 seconds into that Friday game. Miami had a few chances to expand on that lead in the first period. Zach was sharp. He kind of helped steady the ship a little bit, but again, he saw pucks. He wasn't making ridiculous 10-bell saves. He was just making the saves he was supposed to make. And eventually, Ben Steve scores a couple of goals. It gets them going in the game, and I thought they played well the rest of the weekend.
All right. We're going to have to wrap it up there. We're running way long, creating way too much work for Wyatt
Sorry,
here already
Wyatt.
on this episode. But hopefully we gave you some content. We're going to take 2 weeks off here on the podcast and come back in the new year. So Bruce, Zach, thanks for sharing your insights on the first half of UMD hockey.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah, lots to come in the second half. Looking forward to it.
The Bulldog Insider Podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe and rate us. For more Bulldogs hockey coverage, visit DuluthNewsTribune.com/Bulldog Insider. Subscribe to gain access to all of our coverage all season long. Thanks to our sponsor, Essentia Health, for their support of the Bulldog Insider Podcast. And thanks to all of you for listening. Happy holidays, and we'll catch you in the new year.